Have you noticed that some people seem to have a special radar for detecting when things are going well for you? Yes, those who suddenly turn cold when you share good news, or who always find a way to minimize your achievements with poisonous comments disguised as concern. Envy, my friend, is one of the oldest poisons of humanity. And if you don't know how to protect yourself from it, it can end up contaminating your peace of mind and sabotaging your progress. But here's the interesting part. The Stoic philosophers, those masters of ancient wisdom, had already cracked this code more than 2,000 years ago. They knew something we have forgotten in this age of social media and constant comparisons, that the envy of others is not your problem, it's their prison. And today I'm going to teach you exactly how to use that Stoic wisdom to shield yourself from envious people, maintain your tranquility, and keep moving forward without letting anything or anyone stop you. I'm going to show you 3 Stoic lessons that work like an invisible shield against other people's toxicity. Don't miss the 3rd lesson, because it's the one that makes the difference between living on the defensive and living with unshakable confidence. By the end of this episode, not only will you be able to spot envious people from miles away, but you'll also have the mental tools to make sure their poison doesn't touch you at all. But before we begin, pay attention to this story that will help you better understand the wisdom contained in this material. In a prosperous commercial city lived a young craftsman named Marco, known for the exceptional quality of his leatherwork. His wallets, belts, and bags were so beautiful and durable that people traveled from distant towns just to buy his creations. Marco was a humble and generous person, always willing to help other craftsmen and share his knowledge without hesitation. However, in the same neighborhood worked another craftsman named Valerio, who had been in the trade for years, but had never achieved the recognition Marco had. Valerio watched with growing resentment as customers lined up outside Marco's workshop, while his own remained almost empty. Instead of asking himself what he could learn or improve, Valerio began to feed an envy that ate away at him from the inside. At first, Valerio started with subtle comments. When customers asked about Marco, he would say things like, "Yes, Marco makes nice things, but he uses cheap materials. I prefer quality, even if it takes more time." Then he began spreading rumors about Marco's methods, suggesting that his success came from dishonest tricks or special connections. When Marco found out about these comments, his first impulse was to defend himself, confront Valerio, and set the record straight publicly. He felt hurt and confused. Why would someone he had treated with respect and consideration do this to him? The situation began to consume his thoughts and affect his work. One afternoon, while Marco was reflecting on this problem, he remembered the teachings of his grandfather, who had been a follower of Stoic philosophy. His grandfather had taught him that other people's actions are a reflection of their inner world, not his. "Marco," he had said, "when someone attacks you without reason, they are showing their own wound, not pointing out yours." With this perspective, Marco decided to apply 3 Stoic principles that would completely transform the way he dealt with other people's envy. First, he focused on what was within his control, the quality of his work, his attitude toward his customers, and his own inner peace. Second, he understood that Valerio's opinion of him did not define his worth as a person or as a craftsman. And third, instead of responding with anger, he responded with serene indifference, continuing his work as if Valerio's comments were nothing more than background noise. Over time, something extraordinary happened. The customers, who weren't fools, noticed the difference between Marco's noble attitude and Valerio's obvious bitterness. Marco's business continued to flourish, while Valerio, consumed by his own envy, saw how his resentment pushed him further away from the success he so desperately desired. The moral of this story is clear. The envy of others is like a storm that may seem threatening from a distance, but if you know how to protect yourself and stand firm in your principles, it will pass without touching you. True power does not lie in controlling how others feel about you, but in mastering your own response to their emotions. Before we begin with the first lesson, if you find these episodes useful, I encourage you to subscribe and turn on notifications to stay up to date with the latest content. Let's begin. 1. Control only what depends on you. Have you ever noticed how envious people have that special ability to get inside your head? It's as if they know exactly which buttons to press to throw you off balance and turn you into a bundle of nerves. They criticize your new job, downplay your achievements, or simply throw you those resentful looks that seem to say, "You don't deserve what you have." And there you are, losing sleep, going over it again and again, wondering if you did something wrong or if you should change your behavior so you don't upset anyone. But here comes the first great Stoic lesson, and it's probably the most liberating of all. The opinion others have of you is none of your business. Sounds radical, doesn't it? Because we've been taught that we should worry about what others think, that we should adjust our behavior to avoid conflict, that social harmony is more important than our own authenticity. But the Stoics knew something we've forgotten. Wasting energy trying to control other people's emotions and opinions is like trying to change the weather with a fan. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic masters, explained it with brutal simplicity. There are things that are within our control and things that are not. The things within our control are our actions, our decisions, our reactions, and our thoughts. The things outside of our control are literally everything else: other people's opinions, their emotions, their reactions toward us, the weather, traffic, the results of our efforts, and yes, even the envy others may feel toward us. Do you realize the freedom in this? When an envious person criticizes you or tries to sabotage you, you don't have to take on the responsibility of changing how they feel. You don't have to justify yourself. You don't have to alter your behavior to make them feel better. And you definitely don't have to give up on your dreams just to avoid triggering their resentment. Their envy is their problem, their burden, their emotional prison. You are only responsible for how you respond to that situation. Imagine this. You're driving down the road and someone honks at you aggressively, yells, or makes rude gestures. Is it your responsibility that this person is in a bad mood? Should you stop your car, get out, and apologize for existing on the same road? Of course not. That person is dealing with their own internal issues, and you just happen to be the convenient target of their frustration. The same goes for envious people. You didn't cause their envy, you just happened to be visible enough to trigger insecurities that were already inside them. The practical application of this is powerful. When someone throws a poisoned comment at you about your success, instead of defending yourself or justifying yourself, you can simply think, "This person is showing me their inner world, not telling me something real about myself." When someone tries to minimize your achievements, you can recognize that their need to do so reveals more about their own insecurities than about the value of what you've accomplished. This doesn't mean you become insensitive or completely ignore the opinions of others. The Stoics weren't anti-social hermits. But it does mean you learn to distinguish between constructive criticism that comes from a place of genuine care and destructive criticism that comes from envy and resentment. The first can help you grow, the second can only drain you if you let it. True power lies in that choice, to allow or not allow other people's negative emotions to dictate your inner state. When you master this lesson, something magical happens. Envious people lose their power over you because they can no longer manipulate your emotions. It's as if they had been playing a game in which you didn't even know you could refuse to participate. As Marcus Aurelius said in his Meditations, the power to maintain inner serenity does not depend on external circumstances, but on our ability to choose our responses. The envy of others is just another external circumstance, and you have the absolute power to decide how it affects your peace of mind. 2. Practice selective indifference. I'm going to tell you something that will probably surprise you. The Stoics were not cold or insensitive people as many believe. In fact, they were deeply human and emotional. What made them different was their ability to consciously choose what they gave emotional importance to and what they didn't. This is called selective indifference, and it's your second weapon against envious people. Look, the problem isn't that you feel hurt when someone attacks or belittles you. The problem is when you give those attacks the same emotional weight you'd give to something truly important in your life. It's like putting on the same scale the malicious comment of a coworker in your family's health. Do you realize how absurd that sounds when you put it into perspective? Selective indifference doesn't mean you become a robot without emotions. It means you develop an internal filter that allows you to distinguish between what deserves your emotional energy and what doesn't. It's like having a mental security system that automatically classifies threats. Some are real and require your attention. Others are simply noise you can ignore without consequence. Think of it this way. Your emotional energy is like your phone battery. If you spend it responding to every insignificant notification, when something truly important arrives, you won't have enough charge to handle it properly. Envious people are like apps draining your battery in the background without offering you anything of value in return. Selective indifference is simply closing those unnecessary apps. Seneca, another of the great Stoic philosophers, had a phrase that fascinates me. It is more often from pride than from ignorance that we are so obstinately credulous. We do not want our knowledge to be doubted. This applies perfectly to how we react to envious people. Often our wounded ego pushes us to defend ourselves, to prove that we're right, to win a battle that isn't even worth fighting. Selective indifference frees you from that ego trap. When someone throws an envious comment your way, you can simply shrug mentally and think, interesting perspective, but not my problem. It's like watching a bad movie on TV. You don't start yelling at the screen or try to change the script. You just change the channel or turn off the television. But how do you practically develop this skill? First, you need to create what I call a hierarchy of emotional importance. At the top of that hierarchy are the things that truly matter: your personal growth, your genuine relationships, your health, your core values. At the bottom are unsolicited opinions from people who aren't even close to your inner circle of trust. When someone tries to provoke you with envy or resentment, ask yourself, where does this fit in my hierarchy of importance? If it's at the bottom, simply acknowledge it and let it pass. It's like being the bouncer at a nightclub for your own peace of mind. Some things get VIP access into your emotions, others stay outside in line. Second, practice what the Stoics called the view from above. Imagine you can float above the situation and see it from a broader perspective. That person criticizing you out of envy, how important will this be in a year? In 5 years? On your deathbed? This long-term perspective helps you size problems correctly and prevents you from giving trivialities more importance than they deserve. Here's something counterintuitive. Selective indifference doesn't mean being rude or dismissive toward envious people. You can be polite, respectful, even kind, but from a place of emotional detachment. It's like being nice to a persistent salesperson. You can say, "No thank you," with a smile without feeling obligated to buy something you don't need. The Stoics understood that there's a huge difference between responding and reacting. Reacting is automatic, emotional, impulsive. Responding is conscious, measured, chosen. When you practice selective indifference, you stop reacting to the provocations of envious people and start responding from a place of serenity and control. This has a fascinating side effect. When envious people realize they can't affect you emotionally, they lose interest in you as a target. It's like being a video game that's no longer fun because they can't get a reaction. Most of the time, they'll just move on to someone more reactive who gives them the emotional satisfaction they're seeking. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Selective indifference is exactly that. Exercising power over your mind by consciously choosing what deserves your emotional attention and what doesn't. It's one of the most liberating skills you can develop because it makes you the absolute master of your inner peace. 3. Use their envy as fuel for your growth. Here comes the most counterintuitive and powerful lesson of all, the one that truly separates Stoic masters from beginners. Instead of seeing other people's envy as an obstacle or a nuisance, you can transform it into the most potent fuel for your personal growth. Sounds crazy, right? But stay with me, because this will completely change your perspective on envious people. The Stoics had a revolutionary concept called amor fati, which means love of fate. It wasn't about passive resignation to whatever life throws at you, but rather an active acceptance that goes a step further, finding value and opportunity even in the most challenging situations. And believe me, Dealing with envious people definitely qualifies as a challenging situation. Here's the mental trick that the great Stoic philosophers mastered. Every envious person in your life is, unknowingly, your personal trainer for mental strength. Every malicious comment is a repetition at the gym of resilience. Every attempt at sabotage is an opportunity to practice serenity under pressure. It's as if the universe assigned you sparring partners to help you build your emotional muscles. Think of it this way. Elite athletes don't complain when their coach puts tough obstacles in their path. They know every challenge makes them stronger, faster, more resilient. Envious people are your emotional obstacles, and every time you keep your composure in the face of their attacks, you become stronger psychologically. Epictetus, who had been a slave before becoming one of the most respected philosophers of his time, understood this better than anyone. He knew that external adversities, including the hostile treatment of others, were disguised opportunities to develop inner virtues. When someone mistreats you out of envy, you have the chance to practice patience. When someone tries to minimize your achievements, you can exercise authentic humility. When someone spreads rumors about you, you can strengthen your integrity by staying true to your values. But it goes beyond just developing virtues. Other people's envy can be an incredibly valuable indicator that you're on the right path. Have you noticed that no one envies people who aren't doing anything interesting with their lives? Envy always points toward success, growth, progress. If you have envious people around you, it's a sign that you're standing out, creating value, living a life others wish they had. Instead of feeling bad about provoking envy, you can see it as external confirmation that you're moving in the right direction. It's like envious people are your emotional GPS, telling you, yes, you're on the right track, keep going. Of course, this doesn't mean you should deliberately try to provoke envy in others, but it does mean you can interpret its presence as a positive sign rather than a negative one. The Stoics also taught something profound about human nature, that people act according to their own understanding of what is good for them, even when they're wrong. An envious person doesn't wake up in the morning thinking, "Today I'm going to be bitter and resentful." In their distorted mind, they're trying to protect their self-esteem or get something they think they need. Understanding this allows you to see them not as enemies, but as confused people who are suffering inside. This perspective is incredibly powerful because it transforms your relationship with other people's envy. Instead of taking it personally, you can see it for what it really is, a reflection of another person's insecurities and inner pain. And when you understand that someone is acting out of pain, it's much easier to keep your composure and even feel compassion for them. Here's the most fascinating part. When you use other people's envy as fuel for your growth, not only do you become stronger, but you also become more attractive to the right people. The quiet confidence and serenity you develop while handling envy gracefully are magnetic qualities that draw high-quality people into your life. It's like being a magnet that repels toxicity and attracts greatness. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." But I'd suggest going one step further. The best response to envy is not just to avoid being like them, but to use their negative energy to propel yourself to levels of excellence you might never have reached without that external pressure. When you master this third lesson, something extraordinary begins to happen in your life. Envious people stop being a source of stress and become your most reliable indicators of progress. It's like having an emotional barometer that tells you exactly how well you're doing. The more envy you provoke, the clearer it becomes that you're building something valuable. And here comes the part that will blow your mind. You can technically use other people's envy as a free feedback system. When someone criticizes your new house, your job promotion, or your relationship, they're not really criticizing those things. They're revealing exactly which areas of their own life they consider lacking. It's as if they're giving you a map of their insecurities without realizing it. This information is pure gold if you know how to use it. Not to attack them, of course, but to better understand human nature and to develop deeper compassion. The Stoics firmly believed that understanding other people's motivations makes you wiser and stronger. When you understand that the person criticizing your career success is likely frustrated with their own, you no longer take their comments personally. You see them for what they are: cries for help disguised as attacks. And here's the most advanced trick of all. You can use that understanding to respond in ways that completely disarm envious people. Instead of defending yourself or counterattacking, you can respond with genuine curiosity or even words of encouragement. Imagine the confusion in their minds when they expect a defensive reaction and receive understanding instead. For example, when someone says something like, "You probably just got lucky to land that job," instead of explaining all your hard work, you could respond, "You're right. I've had some amazing opportunities. How are things going at your job? I'd love to hear about your projects." This completely derails their strategy of provocation and forces them to confront their own insecurities. The Stoics called this turning obstacles into the way. It's not about avoiding difficulties, but about transforming them into opportunities for growth. Every envious person you encounter is an opportunity to practice virtues that very few situations allow you to develop: extreme patience, compassion toward those who hurt you, serenity under attack, and the wisdom to see beyond appearances. But beware of a common trap. This doesn't mean you become a martyr who tolerates constant abuse. The Stoics were wise, not masochistic. There's a huge difference between using envy as fuel for your growth and allowing others to mistreat you repeatedly. If someone crosses clear boundaries of respect or actively tries to harm you, it's perfectly fine to set firm limits or even walk away from that person. The key is discernment. You can use occasional envious comments as exercises in mental strength, but if someone becomes a constant source of toxicity, protecting your peace of mind is more important than any philosophical lesson. As Seneca said, "There is nothing noble in suffering unnecessary cruelty." Here's something few people understand about the Stoic handling of envy. The calmer and more centered you remain in the face of provocations, the more powerful you become in every area of your life. It's like developing emotional endurance that benefits you not only with envious people, but in every challenging situation you face. The skills you develop handling envy serve you in tough negotiations, difficult conversations, and high-pressure moments. The great leaders of history who studied Stoic philosophy understood this perfectly. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire while dealing with betrayals, conspiracies, and enemies everywhere. His ability to maintain composure and use those pressures as fuel for his wisdom made him one of Rome's most respected emperors. You can apply the same principles in your daily life. There's also a fascinating multiplier effect. When people around you see how you handle envy and negativity with grace and serenity, they automatically see you as more mature, more trustworthy, more worthy of respect. It's like being a solid rock in the middle of an ocean of emotional drama. This reputation opens doors you didn't even know existed. Successful and balanced people naturally feel drawn to those who demonstrate this kind of emotional strength. It's like you become a magnet for opportunities and high-quality relationships, while envious people drift away because they can't get the reaction they want from you. Valuable people move closer because they recognize someone worth building something meaningful with. And here's the final twist that makes this lesson truly powerful. Eventually, some of the people who initially felt envy toward you may transform into your greatest admirers. When you consistently respond to their negativity with serenity and even kindness, you create cognitive dissonance in their minds that forces them to reconsider their perceptions of you. I've seen this happen countless times. The person who once criticized your every move, after months or years of watching your consistency and character, becomes someone who respects you deeply. It doesn't always happen, but when it does, it's a beautiful transformation that shows the power of living by Stoic principles. As Epictetus wrote, "You cannot teach a man something he does not want to learn, but you can be such a powerful example that he feels inspired to change on his own." Your way of handling envy can be that example that inspires others to rise above their own emotional limitations. In the end, using other people's envy as fuel for your growth not only makes you stronger, but turns you into a completely new version of yourself. A version that is not only immune to external toxicity, but transforms it into pure gold for personal development. Remember these 3 Stoic lessons as if they were your invisible armor against envious people. First, control only what depends on you, because spending energy trying to change other people's opinions is like trying to empty the ocean with a spoon. Second, practice selective indifference, consciously choosing what deserves your emotional attention and what doesn't. And third, use their envy as the most powerful fuel for your growth, transforming every attack into an opportunity to strengthen yourself. But here's something I want you to engrave in your mind as if it were a universal law. True victory over envious people is not measured by how many times you defeat them or put them in their place. It's measured by how many times you keep your inner peace intact while they lose theirs. It's like being the only one who remains calm in the middle of a storm, while others run desperately for shelter. The Stoics understood that serenity is not the absence of conflict, but the presence of wisdom in the midst of chaos. Every time someone tries to steal your peace with poisoned comments and you keep your center, you are demonstrating a level of emotional mastery that very few people ever achieve in their lifetime. And let me tell you something else. When you master these lessons, something magical starts happening in your life. Envious people begin to avoid you naturally, not because you treat them badly, but because they intuitively know they can't affect you. It's as if you had an invisible force field that repels negativity. At the same time, you begin to attract higher quality people, those who recognize and value the emotional strength you've developed. But beware of a trap many fall into when applying these teachings. Don't become arrogant, thinking you're above everyone else. True Stoic masters were humble precisely because they understood that we are all in a constant process of learning. The difference was that they had learned not to allow other people's emotional weaknesses to dictate their internal state. Think of these lessons as seeds you plant in the garden of your mind. They won't grow overnight, but with constant practice and patience, they'll become strong trees that no storm of envy can uproot. Every time you apply these principles, you're watering those seeds with the wisdom of more than 2,000 years of proven philosophy. At the end of the day, envious people come and go in your life like the changing seasons. But the lessons you learn handling them, the strength you develop facing them, and the wisdom you gain by turning them into opportunities for growth, those stay with you forever. They are tools you can use not only with envious people, but in any challenging situation life throws at you. The next time you encounter someone who tries to overshadow you with their envy, remember that you have the power to choose your response. You can react from a wounded ego, or you can respond from Stoic wisdom. The difference between these two options will determine not only the outcome of that specific situation, but the kind of person you become in the long run. As the ancient Stoic masters used to say, it's not what happens to you that determines your character, but how you choose to respond to what happens. Envious people are simply one of the many tests life presents to help you forge your inner strength. If you've made it this far, write in the comments, "Other people's envy is my fuel," so I know you truly understood these powerful lessons. I'm excited to hear how you apply these teachings in your daily life and the results you achieve. I invite you to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss more content that will help you develop the mental strength we all need so much in these times. And remember, every like and comment motivates me to keep creating this kind of content that can transform lives. See you in the next episode, where we'll continue exploring the timeless wisdom of the Stoics applied to modern challenges. In the meantime, practice these lessons, because knowledge without action is just entertainment. True power lies in application. As Marcus Aurelius said in one of my favorite quotes from his meditations, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy, but to become the best version of yourself in spite of them."